the 7 daughters of Eve that's on this subject. Can you give pretty approximate dates on when certain populations lived?
The answer to that is yes and no. Okay. You can get dates at the separation about the separation of populations, but there are some assumptions that you have to make. One of the assumptions that you have to make that has been made in all of the mitochondrial DNAs that have linked us all together, and that you all have the wrong picture in your mind when you're thinking about that. But that's a whole other hour. I'll come back to it. I'll get that in just a second. There's an assumption that we have to make on the mutation rate that's associated with that. And what we do is we count up all of the numbers of differences between you, and we multiply that by how fast we think that happens, how many mutations per generation that we think that it happens, and then add those all up, and it builds a tree that goes back and it coalesces to a point 150,000 years ago. The book that Brian Sykes has written called The 7 Daughters of Eve goes into and explains that. It's of absolutely no use for a traditional genealogist. Okay? It doesn't give us any real information as far as that's concerned. However, it is valuable in understanding some of the dynamics of population genetics. But the false picture that I alluded to is that we all go back and that there's a single female back there someplace 150,000 years ago from which we've all descended. No, there's a single female from which our mitochondrial DNA has been derived. But when that single female was living on the earth, there were others that were sisters and cousins and second cousins and not even that were also alive, but their mitochondrial lines have become extinct. Remember, we saw the picture of how that happens. And so just because that happens, because every single person on the earth does not produce a daughter who then produces a daughter, just because of that, mitochondrial lines have to coalesce as we go back. If you sit down on a piece of paper and work that out, you'll see that that's the way that it has to be. And so there is strong evidence that our mitochondrial DNA, in whatever form it was 100,000 years ago, was present in a female someplace, then that mitochondrial DNA gave rise to all of the mitochondrial DNAs that we have today through a process of mutation and inheritance through the generations.
Thank you, Reverend Woodward. We appreciate all your work. Okay, one more quickie. Hold on. I'm going to let us speak in. It's my prerogative. I'm the MC.
Where I spent 18 months down in New Zealand, and the Maori people they believe that they are the blood of Israel. That's who they are. And I was wondering if there had been any DNA tests between the Maori people and the American Indians, because there's such a similarity in some of the facial features, things like that.
There have been a tremendous number of mitochondrial DNA tests that have looked at, first of all, the Americas that we're talking about here, but also the Pacific Islanders. The Pacific Islanders and I can't say it right, but the Maori have, as a large proportion, type B that we saw with up there. A large proportion of Pacific Islanders are type B, which is also found in the Americas, which is also found in Asia. And so their mitochondrial DNA, for the most part, falls into the same type of mitochondrial DNA that we see in the Americas, we see in Asia. We don't see a lot of type Bs in the Middle East, very few. We have seen some. We've seen some in our laboratory and looking at modern-day Egyptians. We've seen some type Bs. But, yeah, so that's what the genetic evidence says right now.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we sure appreciate everybody that's participated so far. My name is John Lynch. I participate on the board of directors of FAIR. And for those of you who are hungry and seeing some of the food over there, I just want to comfort you all by informing you that I've joined a self-help group called On and On and On and On. So you don't have to worry about me droning on and on about things that don't matter. So I do want to inform you a little bit about FAIR. I think it's all of you are here. It's been a lot of work and effort put in by many of the volunteers of FAIR. And I think first I'd like to give a round of applause and thanks to everyone who helped. Just so you know, FAIR as an organization, as Scott had mentioned, is an organization that is staffed completely by volunteers. It was founded several years ago by a group of individuals who were actually conversing on AOL. They were actually able to do that. Instant messaging wasn't even available then, I don't think. But they were involved in chat rooms, and they started finding themselves responding to anti-Mormons who were participating in those chat rooms, and began to recognize an opportunity and a need to provide solid answers to criticisms of LDS leaders, practices, beliefs, doctrine. And FAIR was born of that need. It is an organization, like I mentioned, of volunteers. We are geographically diverse. I happen to reside in California. Scott does as well. We have individuals in Illinois. We have participants that contribute from as far away as Israel, Latin America, Japan, etc. It's, from that standpoint, it's a bit of a challenge for us. But what we are looking to do, we believe, is a worthwhile mission. If you look into the history of the church, the very early periodicals of the church were actually established specifically for the purpose of defending the church, because at the time there was a lot of misinformation that was available at the time. People were spreading rumors, false information, etc., and the church found a need to correct those rumors. Today, we've changed a bit. The church is no longer in persecution mode. We're not being driven as we were when we were driven from Missouri, from Illinois. The persecutions in foreign countries have lessened quite a bit. In fact, the scarlet letter of Mormonism has actually become the badge of courage in many places. To be called a Mormon now is considered to be a very positive thing in most cultures, and certainly in the United States. But what that means is that the types of things that we have to do as an organization are not the combative, responsive type of work that was done in the early days of the church. Today, there are still individuals who publish and promulgate misinformation, some of it innocently, some of it maliciously, about the church. And the reality is that the impact is a filtered, watered-down impact. There are investigators and even members of the church who are impacted by this information. For example, take the research on DNA, which was just so widely or so well expressed by Brother Woodward. Many people have said that because there is no conclusive evidence saying that the Native Americans came from Israel, that therefore the Book of Mormon is false. We now know that really it is inconclusive at best. And so that type of information needs to be disseminated. That needs to be available to the average member. Our objective and our goal as an organization is to take whatever attack might be on the church's practices, etc., and help bring together the answers that the average member, I use, forgive me for using this, I hope I'm not being sexist, but I use what I call the housewife litmus test. If a housewife could take the information and explain it to her neighbor, then we've succeeded. And that's our objective, to bring this great research. There's wonderful minds that are participating in this conference and elsewhere that are contributing to this research. And FAIR's goal is to make this available to the average member. Let me tell you a little bit about what we don't do, first of all. We do not criticize the brethren. We do not purport to speak for the brethren. We don't discuss the sacred matters of the temple verboten. We do not speculate on doctrines. And we don't bash or attack those who perhaps have differing views with the LDS Church. What we mean by that is, what we will do is we will go out and we'll bring the research from the great scholars, the lay members, individuals, wherever the source might be, whatever is good, praiseworthy, or good report, as the Scripture